Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the 99-page omnibus response by the New York DA, Alvin Bragg, to all of Donald Trump's pretrial motions. All right, this is the case that has been sort of dormant, sort of hibernating, and we've been waiting, even though it was the first. This is the Alvin Bragg case involving the payout to Stormy Daniels. It's the Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, and it's the sort of lurid story where Trump and the head of the National Enquirer and Cohen, get together and agree in the months leading up to the election to basically kill and not run any articles or revelations should they come out from Trump mistresses or people claiming prior sexual relationships. And they do that once, the head of the Enquirer, and now comes Stormy Daniels. And this is the back and forth where they buy her story. They kill it. They agree not to run it. There's a payout of $130,000, and it's funneled through Michael Cohen as legal fees, which it really isn't. That's just reminding you about the case. So it's been scheduled for March 25th. Alvin Bragg, the DA, has been the most kind of flexible and has telegraphed, he can put his to the side depending on the schedule of the other cases, but it hasn't happened. And we're now, moving into pretrial, whereas in the other cases, Trump throws everything against the wall, see what could possibly stick or might eventually give rise to some issue on appeal. But, we're talking about a case that's supposed to start in 4 months. So Trump's motion. As elsewhere, all kinds of stuff, and some of them the exact same. For example, I'm being vindictively singled out for prosecution because I'm Donald Trump, former president, and other of the arguments. Some of them are quite. They've actually show up in other places. I won't go through those again with you, but I want to point out two that are distinctive. One is going to be, if it isn't already, the kind of quote in the press, because before Bragg's person starts this whole 99-page of argument, the third paragraph, so kind of put up front for maximum consumption, not the third, the fifth. We address one threshold argument at the outset. Defendant repeatedly suggests that because he's a current presidential candidate, the ordinary rules for criminal law and procedure should be applied differently here. This is something that's a regular theme, right? Judge Chutkan in D.C. totally shut it down. Judge Aileen Cannon has been very responsive to it. And, he tries to make the play both to say, let's put it off till after the election, and to say, there's so much kind of on top of each other at the same time as mandatory dates for me, a presidential candidate. And here's the response of Bragg. This argument is essentially an attempt to evade criminal responsibility because defendant is politically powerful. Courts have repeatedly rejected defendants, and they say, not Trump's, in other words, demands for special treatment, and instead of adhere to the core principle that the rule of law applies equally to the powerful as to the powerless. So very kind of tub-thumping quote saying that Trump's efforts to, get special rules for Donald Trump don't fly. All right. The second kind of argument here, you may have remembered from back then. It's a little slippery legally, but the charge, it's not so rough. Let me just remind everyone of it. The charge is falsifying business records. And that's because when Cohen got paid, it was masked as legal fees, and therefore had a different tax treatment, ordinary expenses versus campaign expenditures get different treatment. And so that's the charge. That charge under New York law is a misdemeanor. However, if it's done with the intent, doesn't even have to go to fruition, but just the intent to commit another crime, it becomes a felony. And that's the way this was charged. So other than the point I made, the sort of rhetorical, you're not booty special, Donald Trump, the important legal part is when Bragg argues we are okay under that theory. And why? Because he did do it with intent to break another law. What law is that? Election laws of New York and the federal government. The basic idea is the reason they pay Cohen in this way is it's actually an election expenditure. It's an expenditure done to keep him from exposure in the campaign. That's why it's being done, and they funnel it as the expense to Cohen to mask that very fact. So there's a few pages where they go through. Here's what that could be a crime under New York law. Here's how it could be a crime under federal law, and we have an intramural skirmish here about whether a federal law crime can be the predicate for bumping up the state law from misdemeanor to felony. And the Bragg's office argues yes, Trump argues no, but Bragg's office also says, you know what, it doesn't matter because we've got state election law crimes as well. So that's remember that kind of tricky legal point, but they're saying, and it makes sense. He falsified business records, that would be a misdemeanor, but with an intent to commit another crime, which is a different election crime, falsification of those records there. One more point. We've known all the time about this feature of New York law that the falsification of business records statute is elevated to a felony if there's another law that you intend to break. And in the lead up to the dropping of the indictment, you may recall there was all kinds of commentary about what crime could it be. For example, could it be a federal election crime? Would that count? There was all kinds of articles, and the commentariat was busy for weeks. And ultimately, Bragg brings the indictment and doesn't specify what the crime is. He just says, tracking the statutory language, he did it with intent to commit another crime. And you know what? We can tell you that crime at trial. We can tell you that, that crime to the jury. And you know what? Further, the jury doesn't even have to agree on what the crime is, as long as they all agree that the falsification crime was done with the intent to further another crime. One juror could think it's murder, the other could think it's jaywalking. I mean, there's got to be evidence, but you see what I mean. So that was the sort of suspenseful aspect, which Bragg responded to by saying, I'm not going to tell you yet. I'm going to keep maximum flexibility. He took some heat for that. And that heat went away only because the focus has gone to all the other trials. But that his position remains, and you can see in this omnibus response to the motion, I don't have to tell you, we can figure it out at trial. We can figure it out as the evidence comes in. The end of the day, it can be different crimes, etc. That could serve up a legal issue, but the law, they're not saying it willy-nilly. There's law, on their side that they're pointing to. But it feels a little funky to say that the jurors could disagree on this, and it feels a little unduly flexible for Bragg to say, I'm not going to tell you what the other crime is. We'll tell you later. And it may vary in the meantime, but that seems to be consistent with the law. This is the actual time, this response to the motion to defense, where we'll see if the court agrees that, yeah, you don't have to tell now, so you're on solid ground legally, whatever kind of hay your political surrogates might make over this point. Okay, so big response to a case that, now comes again, at least to the medium burner, is still scheduled for March 25th. An immediate slap of the knuckles saying you're nobody special, Donald Trump, and then the particular arguments on how you make the misdemeanor a felony in this case. So that's now served up to the court, and once it's disposed of, assuming that the court rules fully for DA Bragg, count one more case very much in the mix and proceeding apace to trial, again, with most of the complications and obstacles removed. No issue about, classified documents or anything like that. It's just served up as a straight misstatement of a financial records case. So, one more in the pool, and one that, in its own right could be rather serious. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.